On the Giza plateau, where the desert meets the sky, a colossal figure emerges from the living rock. It is a riddle etched in stone, the body of a lion, the head of a king. For millennia, the Great Sphinx has stood as a silent sentinel, a guardian of the pyramids and the profound secrets of a civilization that shaped human history. Its enigmatic gaze has fueled endless speculation, a monument whose very existence seems to defy simple explanation. Into this ancient silence, a new voice has recently echoed, carried on a wave of headlines. A study from New York University proposed a startling new origin story, that the Sphinx was not born of human will alone, but was a found object, a geological curiosity first sculpted by the relentless power of the wind. This narrative, suggesting nature as the primary artist and humanity as a mere finisher, offers a seductive simplicity. Yet, when held against the geological and archaeological reality of the P, in the controlled environment of a laboratory, researchers led by Leif Ristroff sought to replicate the forces of nature. Their experiment was an elegant simulation. A soft mound of bentonite clay, chosen for its extreme susceptibility to erosion, was formed. Near its apex, a harder plastic cylinder was embedded, representing the more resilient limestone that would become the Sphinx's head. This miniature landscape was then placed within a water tunnel, where a carefully calibrated unidirectional flow was introduced, a liquid stand-in for a constant desert wind. Slowly, over time, the current sculpted the core. Rudimentary paws began to form at its base. The result was a vaguely leonine shape, an echo of the monument at Giza. The conclusion drawn was that a similar natural process, acting upon a pre-existing rock formation known as a yardang, could have created a proto-sphinx, which ancient Egyptians then discovered and refined. The experiment, within its own parameters, is a valid exploration of fluid dynamics, but when transposed from the laboratory to the wind-swept sands of Giza, its foundations fracture. The most glaring discrepancy lies not in the details, but in the very premise. The model presupposes an isolated, freestanding mound, a geological island buffeted by the elements. The Great Sphinx, however, was never an island. It was liberated from a single monolithic outcrop of limestone, carved directly from the quarry floor that also yielded the blocks for the Great Pyramids. It is a monument born not of erosion, but of excavation. The vast, U-shaped enclosure that surrounds it is not a product of wind, but the scar left by the tools of thousands of workers who chipped away the surrounding bedrock. They did not find a shape, they imposed one, subtracting millions of cubic feet of stone to reveal the titan within. The wind and sand may have softened its edges over millennia, blurring the lines of its original creation, but they did not grant it life. That spark came from the minds and hands of its creators. The Sphinx stands not as a testament to a fortunate accident of erosion, but as a deliberate act of will, an ambition to carve a god from the very fabric of the earth. Its enduring riddle is not one of wind or water, but of the human impulse to impose order upon chaos and to leave a mark that outlasts the ages. It does not stand upon the Giza plateau, it emerges from within it. The Great Sphinx sits as a monolithic sentinel within a deep, quarried hollow, a colossal form hewn directly from the living bedrock. This is not some incidental detail of its placement. It is the fundamental, defining truth of its creation. The very ground from which it rises was carved away to reveal the statue, a symphony of subtraction on an unimaginable scale. The features some might mistake taking effort by human hands. Each contour, each massive flank, is a testament to an astonishing feat of labor and sophisticated planning. This practice, this monumental quarrying of stone, is the unmistakable signature of Egypt's Old Kingdom. It is a technique written across the landscape, evident in the staggering mass of the pyramids, in the silent courtyards of the valley temples, and in the foundations of countless forgotten structures. The very act of creating the Sphinx's enclosure, of digging this vast pit into the plateau, would have obliterated any pre-existing natural formation that might have vaguely resembled a lion. The builders did not find a statue, they imposed one upon the world. A recent theory, born in the controlled environment of a water tunnel, seeks to attribute this form not to human design, but to the blind artistry of the wind. The experiment relies on a crucial, yet fatally flawed assumption: a constant, unidirectional wind, blowing for millennia. But the desert does not operate with such simple mechanics. The winds at Giza, both in the present day and in deep antiquity, are a far more complex and mercurial force. Meteorological records, combined with historical accounts of swirling, unpredictable sandstorms, paint a picture of profound variability. The desert breathes with the seasons, its winds shifting from multiple directions, subject to sudden, violent gusts that defy any simple model. This chaotic reality would have prevented the formation of the precisely oriented, symmetrical patterns observed in the laboratory. It would have scoured and sculpted from all sides, creating a form altogether different, something misshapen and arbitrary. The elegant simplicity of the single wind hypothesis shatters against the complex reality of the plateau. The true story of the Sphinx's weathering is a far more intricate saga, a geological history spanning millions of years before its carving and thousands of years since. It involves a complex interplay of immense forces, each leaving its distinct mark upon the stone. The Giza Plateau itself is not a static stage. It is a living piece of geology, subject to the slow, inexorable pressures of tectonic activity. Deep within the Earth, imperceptible shifts have created significant cracks and fissures that run through the body of the Sphinx. These features meticulously documentary model. These ancient fractures act as conduits, creating pathways for water and weakness, profoundly influencing the patterns of decay in ways a simple wind never could. An even more insidious enemy attacks from below. The lower portions of the monument, resting closer to the ancient water table, have for centuries been subjected to groundwater wicking. Through capillary action, the pod salts, as it reaches the surface and evaporates under the Egyptian sun, the salts crystallize within the stone. These infinitesimal crystals, growing over ages, exert an immense and destructive pressure from within, causing the rock to flake and crumble. This process, known as salt exfoliation, is a primary agent in the Sphinx's deterioration, a relentless force turning its lower body and paws to dust. And then there is the memory of water from above. While rainfall is a rare spectacle in the Giza desert today, geological and climatic evidence reveals that in ages past, the region experienced periods of far more intense precipitation. These ancient torrential downpours would have contributed significantly to erosion. Water, sheeting across the monument's back and head, would have acted as a liquid chisel, carving the deep vertical channels we see today, a pattern wholly inconsistent with horizontal wind abrasion. The Sphinx is therefore not merely a monument to a pharaoh, it is a silent witness to a far grander story. It is a testament to the colossal ambition of its creators, who saw not a hill, but a canvas. And it is a living document of the unceasing forces that shape our world. The slow grind of continents, the patient chemistry of salt and water, and the forgotten fury of ancient rains. It stands in a profound and unending dialogue between human will and the immense, indifferent forces of geological time. For millennia, it has kept its vigil, a silent guardian carved from the living rock of the Giza plateau. Its lion's body and human head, a fusion of power and intellect, watching the ceaseless march of suns over the pyramids and the Nile. Beneath its imposing form, weathered by ages of sand and wind, lies an enigma not of myth, but of origin. Was this colossal figure born from the mind of a pharaoh, or from the blind forces of nature itself? A recent experiment, conducted within the controlled confines of a New York University laboratory, proposed a startling alternative to history. It suggested that a simple flow of water, mimicking millennia of unidirectional wind, could sculpt a similar shape from a clay mound containing a harder inclusion. The implication was profound, that the Great Sphinx might be little more than a geological accident, a natural rock formation later refined by human hands. But here, the elegant simplicity of the laboratory model collides with the unyielding, complex reality of the Giza plateau. The experiment's premise rests on a fundamental misreading of the very ground from which the Sphinx emerges. It failed to account for the intricate layering of the bedrock, the varying hardness of the stone that dictates its form. The monument is not a uniform mass. Its base and its iconic head are hewn from harder, more resistant strata of limestone. The torso, however, is carved from a middle layer that is significantly softer, more susceptible to the ravages of time and erosion, a detail that has necessitated repairs and restorations for centuries. The laboratory model depicts the head as a singular, isolated knot of hard rock embedded within a softer, yielding material. The geological truth, however, is far more expansive and interconnected. The hard, durable limestone that forms the Sphinx's head is not an anomaly. It is part of a continuous, massive stratum that extends across the entire plateau. This is not a matter of speculation, it is a fact written in stone across the landscape. This very same layer was the primary source for the colossal blocks used to construct the Great Pyramid of Khufu, a testament to its sheer extent and the ancient Egyptians' intimate knowledge of its properties. Geological surveys, core samples drawn from deep within the earth, and the visible scars of quarrying that surround the pyramids all confirm this singular, unbroken truth. The Sphinx was not eroded out of the landscape, it was carved down into this pre-existing layered geology, a crucial distinction that invalidates the experiment's foundational premise. The theory leans on the existence of natural, wind-sculpted rock formations, known as yardangs. These are real geological phenomena, often found in arid environments, where consistent, powerful winds carve softer rock, leaving behind more resistant cores that can, on occasion, resemble animals or other recognizable shapes. But the precise conditions required for their formation are exceptionally rare. They demand an unwavering, unidirectional wind blowing for eons, coupled with a veil. These conditions are simply not representative of Giza's complex history. Wind patterns on the plateau are variable, not constant, and the geology is one of broad horizontal layers, not isolated pockets. While a natural yardang may have existed in the area before the monument's creation, it could not have resembled the final, detailed form of the Sphinx. More importantly, any such feature would have been utterly obliterated by the very process required to create the monument. The Sphinx sits within a massive U-shaped enclosure, a quarry pit dug deep into the bedrock. The stone removed from this enclosure was itself used to build the temples that stand before the statue. The act of quarrying the pit, of creating the space in which the Sphinx now rests, negates the possibility of a pre-existing, naturally formed yardang of that shape and scale surviving in that exact location. The laboratory research, while scientifically sound within its own narrow and artificial constraints, offers no credible explanation for the origin of this wonder of the ancient world. The overwhelming weight of evidence accumulated over 2 centuries of rigorous archaeological and geological study points unequivocally in one direction. The Sphinx is a monument deliberately conceived, planned, and meticulously carved by the will of human beings. The tool marks of ancient artisans, its precise astronomical alignment with other Old Kingdom structures, the masterful use of the natural geological layering, and its complex history of weathering and repair all contradict the simplistic narrative of a wind-borne accident. It stands not as a product of chance, but as a triumph of vision. The deepest secret the Sphinx holds may not be what lies beneath its paws, but the enduring power of a deliberate, monumental idea to outlast the empires that conceived it, remaining to question us even as we question it. For millennia, the desert held its greatest secret captive, a lone, colossal head, staring eastward into eternity, its body swallowed by the shifting sands of the Giza plateau. This was the Great Sphinx, as the world knew it for centuries, a silent, enigmatic sentinel, its true form and purpose lost to time. The question of its architects, a whisper carried on the wind, remained unanswered. The slow awakening began in 1817. An Italian explorer, Captain Giovanni Battista Caviglia, led one of the first modern efforts to break the desert's hold. His teams toiled under the Egyptian sun, clearing mountains of sand, driven by the hope of finding an entrance, a key to the monument's soul. But as they exposed the creature's chest and paws, the limestone revealed nothing. No doorways, no inscriptions, no path to the world that might lie within. The Sphinx kept its silence. It would take another century for the beast to be fully unshackled. In the 1920s and 1930s, the French Egyptologist Émile Barrès undertook a far more exhaustive excavation. Over years of methodical work, the sand finally relinquished its grip, revealing the full, magnificent, leonine body for the first time in modern history. But this revelation brought with it a deeper mystery. The bedrock around the monument was not entirely solid. Evidence of subterranean passages began to emerge, hinting at a world hidden beneath the paws of the guardian. This discovery ignited a legend, an idea that has captivated seekers for generations. The possibility of a lost repository of knowledge, the mythical Hall of Records. Could this be its location? A library of wisdom from a forgotten pre-dynastic civilization, protected by the most imposing statue on Earth? The quest intensified in the latter half of the 20th century. In the 1970s and 80s, Plateau, the eyes of technology. Ground-penetrating radar and seismographs sent waves deep into the earth, mapping the unseen. Their instruments listened for echoes from the past, and what they heard was astonishing. The data revealed anomalies, hollow spaces, and geometric voids carved into the bedrock beneath the Sphinx. The whispers were becoming a conversation. What were these chambers for? Were they simple tombs, ritualistic spaces, or something far more profound? The scale of this hidden network is staggering. Some tunnels are believed to extend for nearly 30 meters, opening into chambers reaching heights of 5 meters. The complexity of their construction presents a profound engineering paradox. To excavate such cavities without causing the colossal 200-ton monument above to fracture or collapse would require a breathtaking understanding of geology and structural mechanics. Could a civilization, more than 4,000 years ago, armed with little more than copper and stone, have truly achieved such a feat? The mystery is not confined to the world below. During a restoration project, another enigma was found in plain sight: a metal hatch sealed on the crown of the Sphinx's head. To many, it is a modern feature, a simple access point for repairs, but for others, it is a tantalizing clue. Could it be an ancient secret, an entry point to chambers within the head itself, a relic of a lost technology designed by the original builders for a purpose we cannot yet comprehend? And so we are left staring at the monument itself, a sculpture of impossible scale, carved not from assembled blocks, but from a single monolithic outcrop of limestone. It stretches 240 feet, the length of a modern football field. It rises 66 feet, the height of a 6-story building. Its sheer existence is a challenge to our understanding of the ancient world. The Sphinx offers no easy answers. It is a monument that seems to absorb all our questions and reflect back only our own awe and uncertainty. It stands as a testament not only to the power of its creators, but to the vastness of the history we have lost. It guards the pyramids, yes, but more than that, it guards the very edge of our knowledge, a timeless riddle carved in stone, waiting for a future that may finally be wise enough to understand it. It has watched the sun rise nearly 10 million times, a silent guardian carved from the living bedrock of the Giza plateau. Its unblinking gaze has seen empires rise and crumble into the very dust from which they were built. Orthodox history tells a clear, confident story that the Great Sphinx is the work of Pharaoh Khafra, a monument to his divine power, hewn from the limestone around 2500 BCE. It is a face meant to project order and permanence, a cornerstone of the Egyptian Golden Age. But the stone itself tells another, far more ancient tale. Etched into its colossal body are deep, vertical fissures, the unmistakable scars of water erosion. These are not the gentle, sweeping patterns of wind and sand that have shaped the desert for millennia. They are the marks of torrential, prolonged rainfall, a climate that has not existed in this part of the world for thousands of years. A different school of thought, one that looks to geology rather than archaeology for its first clues, suggests a staggering possibility. The water that carved these channels may have last fallen in abundance not during the age of the pharaohs, but as far back as 10,000 BCE, when the last ice age receded and the Sahara was a verdant, rain-swept savanna. This single observation, if correct, shatters the bedrock of our understanding. It would mean the Sphinx predates the civilization we credit with its creation by more than 7,000 years. It would suggest that long before the first pharaoh, a sophisticated, forgotten culture possessed the skill, the vision, and the resources to carve a mountain into a god. A lost civilization, erased from the annals of history, leaving behind only this enigmatic sentinel and the pyramids that stand behind it. Who were these people? If such a culture existed, why does it remain a ghost in our history, with no other cities, no pottery, no written records to mark its passage? The questions only deepen when we consider the monumental task of its construction. The official narrative imagines an army of laborers, tens of thousands strong, quarrying and moving multi-ton blocks with brute force, ingenuity, and sheer will. They would have used copper chisels and stone hammers, dragging enormous limestone blocks on wooden sledges over sand lubricated with water. Modern experiments have proven such methods are technically feasible, yet the sheer scale and precision of the Giza monuments strain the limits of this explanation. This has opened the door to more speculative and perhaps more unsettling theories. Some argue that a lost technology must have been involved, a forgotten science that made the impossible possible. Did these ancient builders possess a profound understanding of physics, a way to manipulate mass using sound and vibration, turning stone momentarily weightless? While such ideas remain on the fringes of science, the mystery of their methods endures, as solid and immovable as the monument itself. And beneath the surface, the enigma continues. Using ground-penetrating radar and seismic imaging, researchers have detected anomalies, voids and chambers sealed deep within the bedrock beneath the Sphinx's paws. The official gates to these subterranean spaces remain closed, fueling decades of speculation. Were they simple, unfinished tombs? Or could they be something more? A repository of ancient knowledge, a library of a world that has vanished from memory, holding the records of the Sphinx's true creators. Perhaps they were sacred ritualistic spaces, designed to channel the Earth's energies in ways we no longer comprehend. Each new layer of inquiry reveals not answers, but more profound questions. The Sphinx was not built, it was sculpted from a single massive outcrop of limestone, a feat of artistry and engineering that is staggering even by today's standards. The head, carved from a harder, more durable stone, is disproportionately small compared to the leonine body, leading some to believe it may have been recarved centuries after its initial creation, perhaps by Khafra himself. We are left in the shadow of this colossus, confronted by the limits of our own knowledge. The water erosion, the construction methods, the hidden chambers. Each is a thread in a tapestry we can only partially see. The Sphinx stands as a testament not to what we know of our past, but to how much we have forgotten. Perhaps its true purpose is not to be an answer, but to be the eternal question carved in stone. It is a reminder that history is not a closed book, but a living landscape, and that the desert has not yet yielded all of its secrets. The story of humanity may be far older and far more profound than we have ever dared to imagine. It has watched the sun rise more than 1,000,000 times, a silent sentinel hewn from the living rock of the Giza plateau. The Great Sphinx. Orthodox history tells a simple story. A monument with the body of a lion and the head of a king, carved during the reign of Khafre. But this simple story crumbles under the weight of more profound, more unsettling questions. For some, its purpose was never funerary, its gaze never meant for this world alone. One compelling theory reimagines this stone titan not as a guardian of the dead, but as a celestial clock. Its eastward gaze is no accident. It aligns with breathtaking precision to a specific point in the sky during the vernal equinox, the constellation of Leo, the lion. This alignment suggests the Sphinx is a colossal marker, a device for tracking the slow, inexorable precession of the equinoxes. It may have been built to commemorate a specific epoch, the Age of Leo, an era that ended thousands of years before the accepted timeline of its construction. In this vision, the Sphinx is not merely a statue, but a cosmic instrument, anchoring the Egyptian civilization to the grand, turning wheel of the heavens. It becomes a message across millennia, a communication not with other worlds, but with the future of our own. This inquiry into unconventional purpose leads us deeper, from the celestial to the terrestrial. Another, more radical hypothesis posits that the Giza plateau was not a necropolis, but a colossal power plant. In this framework, the Great Pyramids were immense energy generators, harnessing subtle forces of the earth. And the Sphinx? It was the linchpin, the central control mechanism or regulator for this vast, silent machine. Proponents point to the precise alignment of the structures, not just with the stars, but with the cardinal points and the planet's own magnetic field. They highlight the proximity to the Nile, whose annual flood could have acted as a chemical or electrical catalyst. Though no definitive evidence for such a system has ever been unearthed, the theory persists, a tantalizing alternative that speaks to a lost science, a technology that worked in harmony with the Earth itself. The greatest secrets, however, may not lie in plain sight, but deep beneath the desert sands. For decades, whispers of unexplored chambers and hidden passages beneath the Sphinx have fueled speculation and clandestine searches. Could these shadowed voids contain the fabled Hall of Records? According to legend, a legacy passed down through esoteric traditions, this subterranean library holds the collected wisdom of a pre-cataclysmic civilization, perhaps the lost Atlantis itself. It is said to contain scrolls and artifacts detailing histories and sciences far beyond our own. While modern seismology has hinted at anomalies beneath the creature's paws, no conclusive discovery has ever been made public. The search continues, a modern quest for a holy grail of forgotten knowledge, hidden in the dark, silent earth. Lying dormant since its discovery in the late 19th century, one such subterranean marvel has only recently captured the world's attention: the Osiris Shaft. Initially dismissed, this intricate, multi-level complex plunges deep into the bedrock of the plateau. It is a descent through layers of time, its architecture and profound symbols offering a direct glimpse into the most sacred religious and ceremonial practices of the ancient Egyptians. Its true purpose remains a mystery, but its advanced construction invites us to question the limits of the knowledge possessed by its builders. And it is this question of knowledge, of capability, that gives rise to the most speculative theory of all. For some, the sheer scale and mathematical perfection of the Giza complex are simply too advanced for the dynastic Egyptians. The precision with which multi-ton blocks were quarried, transported, and fitted together defies conventional explanations of Bronze Age technology. This has led many to a startling conclusion: they had help. The theory of extraterrestrial intervention has persisted for decades, suggesting that ancient architects were guided by visitors from beyond this world. While it remains firmly in the realm of science fiction for mainstream archaeology, its endurance highlights the profound awe the Sphinx inspires. It is a monument so magnificent, so perfectly realized, that for some, its origins must be literally unearthly. Yet, even stripping away all speculation of stars, energy, and aliens, we are left with an undeniable miracle of human engineering. We stand before it, dwarfed by its scale, humbled by its age, and we are confronted not with answers, but with a cascade of enduring questions. What was its true purpose? Who were the people who possessed the will and the vision to carve a mountain into a god? And why, after thousands of years of scrutiny, does it continue to hold such a powerful grip on our collective imagination? The Great Sphinx of Giza remains, its limestone face eroded by winds and time, guarding secrets that it may never fully surrender. What lies beneath its paws? What is encoded in its gaze? What history is buried in the past it has silently witnessed? These are the riddles it poses. Perhaps its ultimate purpose was not to be a tomb, or a clock, or a machine. Perhaps it was built to be an eternal question, a mirror reflecting our own relentless search for meaning in the face of the infinite. It waits patiently for the day we are ready not just to hear its answers, but to finally understand the questions it has been asking all along. Beneath the sun-scorched Giza plateau, amidst monuments that have commanded the world's attention for millennia, a profound secret lay dormant. For centuries, the gaze of explorers and Egyptologists was fixed upward, drawn to the colossal silhouettes of the Great Pyramids and the eternal stare of the Sphinx. They walked above a mystery, oblivious to the labyrinthine world carved into the very bedrock beneath their feet. This feature, less conspicuous than its titanic neighbors, remained a whisper in the sand, largely unexplored until the final decades of the 20th century, when a new generation of archaeology dared to look not up, but down. Rumors had long persisted of hollow spaces within the limestone shelf, of chambers concealed not by intricate locks, but by official silence. The turning point arrived in the 1990s, a moment of reckoning for the secrets of the plateau. Under the direction of the renowned Egyptologist Zahi Hawass, a comprehensive and systematic exploration was launched into a vertical shaft, a feature that would come to be known as the Osiris Shaft. It was a descent into the unknown, a mission to confirm what had only been suspected, that the ground beneath the Sphinx was not solid. The first and most formidable guardian of this underworld was water. Over centuries, the lower levels had flooded, creating a dark subterranean lake that submerged the shaft's deepest secrets. The water table, rising ominously, lapped at the very foundations of Giza's history. To proceed, the team had to engage in a modern battle against an ancient element. Powerful pumping equipment was brought in, and for weeks, the noisy work of 21st century technology fought to reclaim a space conceived in the Bronze Age. As the water receded, it was as if a veil was being slowly lifted from the face of the netherworld. What emerged from the dark water was an engineering marvel, a testament to the sophisticated skills of its ancient creators. The shaft was not a simple pit, but a complex, multi-layered structure descending nearly 100 feet into the earth. It revealed itself in 3 distinct stages, a trinity of chambers that seemed to map a journey from the world of the living to the realm of the gods. The second level, once clear of debris, presented an immediate enigma. 6 smaller burial shafts carved with precision into the rock walls. Yet they were all empty. There were no bodies, no funerary goods, no remnants of the deceased. This finding fueled intense speculation. Were they symbolic tombs, gateways for spirits? Or were they intended for a purpose that was never fulfilled? A grand design left tragically incomplete. The true revelation, however, awaited at the bottom of the abyss. The third and lowest level was a scene of profound and breathtaking symbolism. Here, in a chamber designed to remain perpetually filled with water, stood a massive, monolithic stone sarcophagus. It was an island of granite in a man-made sea, a deliberate recreation of the Egyptian creation myth, the primordial mound of creation rising from the chaotic waters of Noon. This was not a tomb in the conventional sense. It was a stage, a sacred theater for the eternal drama of death and rebirth, a potent symbol of Osiris, the lord of the underworld, who was himself resurrected. The challenge of dating this extraordinary complex was immense. The stones themselves were mute, largely devoid of the inscriptions that so often illuminate Egypt's past. The excavation did unearth artifacts, pottery shards and fragments of elegant stone vessels, but these were faint echoes, the scattered remnants of forgotten rituals. Based on the style of this pottery and the architectural features, archaeologists cautiously suggest a date in the New Kingdom period. Yet, the possibility remains that elements of the shaft are far older, a sacred place reused and reconsecrated by successive generations, each adding their own layer to its enduring mystery. The Osiris shaft remains an intensely debated and deeply enigmatic place. It is a puzzle box of stone and water, a subterranean complex that challenges our understanding of Egyptian religious practice. Was it a symbolic tomb for Osiris himself, a physical anchor for his spirit on the Giza plateau? Or was it a site for esoteric ceremonies, where priests enacted the rituals of resurrection far from the light of the sun? The answers remain buried, not in the sand, but in the very intent of its creators. It stands as a powerful reminder that for all we have unearthed, the ancient world still holds its secrets close. The earth beneath our feet is a library of forgotten stories, and we have, perhaps, only just learned to read the title of its first volume. Beneath the sands of the Giza plateau, in the sacred shadow of the pyramids, lies a passage not to a king's tomb, but to the very heart of an ancient mystery. It is a vertical descent into the bedrock, a journey through 3 distinct levels known to modern explorers as the Osiris Shaft. Its purpose, many believe, was not the interment of the dead, but the dramatic reenactment of resurrection. To understand this place is to understand Osiris, the archetypal god-king of the Egyptian pantheon, murdered, dismembered, and miraculously restored to life. His story of death and rebirth became the divine blueprint for every pharaoh's journey into the afterlife, and for every soul's hope for eternity. The theories that surround this enigmatic structure are deeply entwined with the sacred rites of his cult. The shaft is a piece of theological architecture, a theater for the most profound rituals. At its nadir, nearly 100 feet below the surface, the rock gives way to water. Here, in the third and final chamber, a dark, still pool floods the floor. This is not seen as a mere accident of geology or a rising water table. It is a deliberate recreation of Nun, the primeval abyss, the primordial waters from which all creation was born. It is the symbolic underworld itself. Rising from this subterranean lake is a stone platform, and upon it rests a colossal black sarcophagus, precisely carved and utterly empty. This sarcophagus is the focal point of the entire complex. While it never held a body, it served a far greater purpose. It was the symbolic tomb of Osiris, the sacred stage upon which his return to life was celebrated. It stands as a powerful emblem of his death, but more importantly, of his ultimate triumph over it. Here, in the deepest Dahi, very forces of life, death, and regeneration. One of the most compelling theories posits that the Osiris shaft was an initiatory chamber, a place where chosen individuals were guided through the secret mysteries of the cult. The perilous descent through its levels was no mere physical act, it was a spiritual allegory. It mirrored the initiate's own journey through a symbolic death, a passage through the underworld to achieve enlightenment and spiritual rebirth. Each level would have represented a distinct stage of this profound transformation, a shedding of the mortal coil in preparation for a higher state of being. The final arrival in the water-filled chamber before the empty sarcophagus would have marked the culmination of this ordeal, the moment of resurrection, a personal experience of the Osirian promise of eternal life. But the rituals performed here may have served not only the individual, but the entire nation. The cycles of Osiris are inextricably linked to the cycles of the Nile and the agricultural fertility of the land. His death mirrored the arid summer, his resurrection the life-giving annual flood. Ceremonies within the shaft could have been cosmic in scale, aimed at ensuring the regeneration of the land itself. They might have involved symbolic plantings, libations of water drawn from the sacred pool, and the chanting of hymns, and that the fields would grow fertile and that Egypt would endure. Further speculation extends the shaft's purpose beyond the earth and towards the heavens. Ancient Egyptian theology held that the stars were the destination for the souls of the righteous. The very structure and orientation of the shaft may have possessed an astronomical significance, a precise alignment with a star or constellation associated with Osiris, such as Orion. It could have acted as a celestial conduit, a final signpost for the soul's ascent from the underworld back to its eternal home among the imperishable stars. While direct archaeological proof remains tantalizingly out of reach, the circumstantial evidence is profound. The meticulous construction of the shaft, its strategic location in the most sacred necropolis on Earth, and the symbolic artifacts recovered from its chambers all point to a deliberate and deeply significant purpose. This was not a tomb, but a machine for transformation, a sacred space where the boundary between the world of the living and the realm of the dead was made permeable. It is a testament to a civilization that did not fear death, but instead saw it as a necessary passage, a doorway that, with the proper knowledge and ritual, could lead to a dawn more glorious than any earthly sunrise. Etched in the fragile fibers of ancient papyri are the sacred maps of the afterlife, a numinous landscape of eternal waters, of solar barks navigating the darkness, and of the sarcophagus as a vessel for rebirth. For centuries, these were believed to be mere myths, allegories for the soul's journey. But they were also architectural blueprints, given terrifying and magnificent form deep within the limestone bedrock of the Giza plateau. Here, the earth itself was engineered to become a sacred text. The structure known as the Osiris shaft is a testament to an ambition that sought to blend the practical with the mystical, constructing a physical pathway that mirrors the soul's descent into the underworld. It is a masterpiece of subterranean construction, organized into 3 distinct levels, each a deeper commitment to a world beyond our own, connected by vertical shafts that pierce through. The engineering prowess on display is staggering, revealing an advanced and intimate knowledge of the Earth. The descent begins at a simple, rectangular opening, a deliberate and unassuming wound in the desert floor. This is the threshold. From here, a vertical shaft, hewn with unforgiving precision, plunges straight down for approximately 10 meters. This was not a gentle excavation. It was a war against stone, waged by hands wielding tools of hardened dolerite, copper, and perhaps the newly mastered bronze. Tons of limestone, chipped away in the suffocating dark, were hauled to the surface with ropes and rudimentary wooden scaffolding, a testament to an unyielding vision. The first chamber reached is a space of stark simplicity, an architectural pause. It is relatively modest and conspicuously devoid of the elaborate decorations or grand artifacts one might expect. Its austerity is intentional, suggesting a liminal function, an antechamber for the soul, a preparatory space where the world of the living was ritually shed and the rites of purification could begin. But the journey was far from over. From the floor of this chamber, a second shaft opens, continuing the descent for an additional 20 meters. The engineering challenge would have magnified exponentially at this depth. The air would have grown thin and stale, the darkness more absolute, the structural integrity of the surrounding rock a constant, pressing concern. This second, more extensive chamber reveals a more complex purpose. Its floor is pierced by 6 burial shafts, carved with deliberate intent into the stone. Yet, when they were rediscovered, they were found empty. This emptiness whispers 1,000 questions. Were they plundered by ancient hands, their sacred occupants disturbed, or was their vacancy the entire point? Perhaps they were never meant for bodies of flesh and bone, but served a purely ceremonial function, symbolic graves for spiritual guardians of the tomb, or markers representing stages of the soul's passage through the duat. Their silent presence speaks to a profound ritual purpose, a funerary theater enacted in the heart of the earth. The true heart of the mystery, however, lies deeper still. A final shaft plummets from the second level, reaching a total depth of some 30 meters below the sun-scorched surface of the plateau. This is the final descent, the architectural culmination of the journey into the underworld. Down here, in the cool, silent dark, the air is heavy with myth. This final chamber is a stunning tableau, a microcosm of the primordial creation myth. A massive, black basalt sarcophagus sits in silent majesty, not on dry land, but upon a stone island. And surrounding it, a moat, a pool of subterranean water that seeps from the very bedrock of Giza. Here, the textual descriptions of the afterlife become undeniable reality. The water, the island, the sarcophagus, it is a physical manifestation of the tomb of Osiris, the god of the underworld, who was reborn from the primordial waters. The Osiris shaft is not merely a tomb, it is a piece of theological engineering. Each level, a stage in a ritual drama. Each shaft, a verse in a hymn carved in stone. It was built to mirror the cosmos, to channel the regenerative powers of the earth and the underworld. The builders who descended into this man-made abyss sought to conquer death not with force, but with understanding, by recreating its landscape, by mastering its geography. They sought to ensure that the journey into darkness was not an end, but a carefully navigated passage toward the dawn. In the silent water at the bottom of the world, they saw not a grave, but the eternal promise of a new beginning. Deep beneath the Giza plateau, far from the sun-scorched stone of the Great Pyramids, lies a subterranean world cut from the living bedrock. Here, in the sepulchral silence, a chamber is dominated by a vast, monolithic sarcophagus, a stark and dramatic representation of the tomb of Osiris, the Egyptian god of the underworld and resurrection. This is not a place for the living, but a gateway between worlds, a point of sacred intersection. The very air is thick with the weight of millennia. But what makes this chamber truly unique is the water. It is not brought here. It rises from the earth itself. The chamber is partially filled with the dark, still waters of the natural aquifer, a direct link to the lifeblood of the land. This deliberate integration of water is central to its purpose. In the ancient cosmology, water was the primeval ocean, the source of all creation, a symbol of life, purification, and regeneration. By flooding the symbolic tomb of the god, the architects created a potent engine of rebirth, a place where death was not an end, but a necessary passage. Around the central sarcophagus, a silent island in this subterranean sea, are smaller chambers, niches that once held the mummified remains and sacred artifacts meant to accompany the god on his journey through eternity. This accepted mythological interpretation, however, is being challenged by a different kind of inquiry. Maverick author and researcher Graham Hancock has spent decades examining these ancient sites, proposing a narrative that radically departs from orthodox archaeology. He posits that the Osirian shaft, and indeed the entire Giza complex, may hold clues to a far older and more profound story. For Hancock, the key lies in what the ancient Egyptians themselves told us. In many of their most sacred texts, they speak not of invention but of inheritance. They describe their knowledge, their science, their entire civilization as a legacy, handed down from a golden age of gods, a time of giants known as the. A central theme of Hancock's work is the hypothesis of a lost, advanced civilization, one that flourished during the last ice age and was wiped from the face of the earth by a global cataclysm. He suggests this forgotten culture possessed a sophisticated understanding of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering, a knowledge that became the inheritance, the sacred legacy, passed on to takes on a new, more literal meaning. It ceases to be merely a symbol of mythological floods and becomes a potential memorial to a real one, a deliberate architectural echo of the cataclysmic rising sea levels that, Hancock argues, destroyed his hypothesized mother culture. The tomb of the resurrected god becomes a monument to a resurrected humanity, a memory of survival encoded in stone and water. This idea of a hidden history, a Giza beneath Giza, extends to the plateau's most enigmatic monument. The Great Sphinx, weathered by ages, holds its own secrets. Ancient artworks, stelae from the New Kingdom, depict the monument not as we see it today, but wearing a tall, regal crown. If such a crown never existed, the mysterious man-made hole in the top of the Sphinx's head may have been cut for a very practical purpose, to anchor the massive headdress in place. Whatever its original function, the opening was sealed from the world for nearly a century. In 1926, the the French engineer Émile Barrais, during his restoration work, reinforced the ancient statue and bolted a heavy iron trapdoor over the cavity. For decades since, this secret door has remained locked, its contents the subject of intense speculation, strictly off-limits to all. Until now, with immense effort, the rusted bolts yield. As the heavy iron lid is finally pried open, a musty, stale gust of air escapes from the darkness within, a breath held captive since the early 20th century. It is the scent of sealed history, of dust and time itself. What lies below is not just a cavity in the stone, but a void in our understanding, a question mark hanging over the very origins of this monumental civilization. The opening of a single door may not answer every question, but it reminds us that the story of our past is not a finished text. It is a landscape of buried chambers and flooded tombs, where the accepted narrative is merely the surface, and the deepest truths may still be waiting in the dark, silent waters below. Upon the Giza plateau, where time itself seems to stand still, a new chapter is being written. High atop the weather-beaten crown of the Great Sphinx, a small team of archaeologists breaks a seal of ages. Peering down, their world narrows to a single dark aperture, a vertical shaft dropping approximately 6 feet into the very mind of the stone titan. The walls of this hidden space are a revelation. They are impossibly straight, perfectly squared, the clear and deliberate work of human hands. This was no natural fissure. It was a chamber, carved with purpose. Yet, the floor beneath is rough, unworked limestone, the native rock of the plateau, sitting a few feet above the ground level outside. In the focused beam of a torch, a thin crevice snakes away from the bottom of the pit, a tantalizing passage into deeper, unknown recesses. A silent, shared understanding passes between them, the electric thrill of standing at a threshold unseen by any living person for generations. With meticulous care, a small, high-resolution camera is lowered into the shaft. Its fiber optic cable trembles, a fragile thread connecting the present to a silent, sealed past. On the monitor, the chamber's interior resolves out of the darkness. Every surface is veiled in a fine blanket of dust, the accumulated residue of centuries. But as the light scans the walls, faint, rhythmic scars become visible. They are the marks of chisels, the frozen echoes of immense labor, a testament to the forgotten artisans who hollowed out this secret space so long ago. There are no gleaming treasures here, no caches of ancient scrolls. There is only stone and a silence. We imagine this colossus as it is today, a monolithic guardian of a uniform sandy hue. But this is a ghost of its former self. Archaeologists have discovered telltale traces of pigment across its vast form. A deep, earthen red on its face, and subtle hints of vibrant blue and yellow on its body. The discovery suggests that the Sphinx was once a dazzling spectacle, a vividly painted behemoth gazing out over the desert in garish, divine colors. Here, inside this protected shaft, shielded from the scouring winds and the bleaching sun, it is possible that a tiny, pristine remnant of that ancient paint still clings to the stone, a quiet reminder of its former glory. Having documented the chamber, the researchers ascend, their minds reeling not with the weight of gold, but with the gravity of insight. What they have found is not a treasure chamber, but something far more profound, a direct link to the Sphinx's construction and to the efforts of those who have guarded it through the ages. The precisely carved walls suggest that ancient builders, or perhaps later restorers, intentionally engineered this opening. But for what purpose? Was it a simple, pragmatic solution, an anchor point for a magnificent headdress long since vanished? Or could it have been the beginning of a far more ambitious project, a passage intended to probe deeper into the massive stone body, a plan abandoned for reasons we can now only guess at? For now, the Sphinx does not yield that secret. The narrow crack at the bottom of the shaft remains an unexplored invitation, a question beckoning future investigation. Still, the very act of entering this legendary monument has made history. After millennia of speculation, of myth and fantasy, modern eyes have finally seen the interior of the Sphinx's head, turning a new, factual page in the story of this enigmatic creature. This caution, this painstaking approach, is born of a humbling reality. For all its global fame, the Great Sphinx remains one of history's most profound enigmas. Astonishingly, not a single written record from the time of its supposed construction, not one papyrus scroll or tomb inscription, has ever been found to tell us its original name, its creator, or its true purpose. It is a monument defined by a deafening silence. This void in the historical record is its greatest mystery. It stands in stark contrast to the pyramids it guards, whose construction and purpose are detailed in the annals of the Old Kingdom. The Sphinx simply is. It exists outside the narrative, a colossal question mark carved from a single ridge of limestone. Its secrets are not kept by complex locks or hidden doors, but by the vast, unbridgeable chasm of lost time. And so, it continues its silent vigil, its worn face staring toward the dawn, a timeless testament not to what we know of the past, but to how much we have yet to understand. Upon the Giza plateau, a limestone sentinel keeps an eternal, silent vigil. It is a creature born of bedrock and imagination, a hybrid of human and lion, staring eastward into the dawn of millennia. For generations, the orthodox narrative has been etched into the annals of history, as surely as hieroglyphs in granite. Egyptologists have long held that this colossal monument, the Great Sphinx, was commissioned by the pharaoh Khafre around 2500 before the Common Era, a magnificent guardian for his own pyramid complex. It was to be a symbol of his divine power, a fusion of royal intelligence and leonine strength, forever anchoring his legacy to this sacred landscape. Yet within this bedrock of consensus, a profound and unsettling silence resides. Across the entirety of the monument, not a single, unambiguous inscription has ever been found that definitively links Khafre, or any pharaoh of his era, to its creation. No triumphant text proclaims his name. No cartouche claims ownership of this, one of the most ambitious sculptures ever conceived by humankind. This glaring absence has become a fissure in the established timeline, a void into which new and far more radical questions have begun to flood. Perhaps the most provocative of these challenges comes not from a dusty papyrus, but from the very stone of the Sphinx itself. Geological studies of the monument's body and the sheer walls of the enclosure from which it was carved reveal a story at odds with the desert environment. The deep, vertical fissures and undulating, softened contours that scar its flanks speak not of millennia of wind and sand abrasion, but of something else entirely. Some geologists argue these patterns are the unmistakable signature of precipitation-induced erosion, weathering caused by prolonged, heavy rainfall. This is a heretical proposition, for the Giza Plateau has been a hyper-arid desert for the last 4,500 years. To find a climate capable of inflicting such damage, one must journey deep into the past, to a time when the Sahara was a verdant savanna teeming with life. According to this controversial hypothesis, the Sphinx might be vastly older than the pyramids it guards. It could be a relic from the end of the last great ice age, a monument carved perhaps as early as 10,000 before the Common Era. Such an unthinkable antiquity would shatter our understanding of the ancient world, predating dynastic Egypt by thousands of years and hinting at a lost, high civilization, a forgotten chapter in the story of humanity. While this grand debate rages, other mysteries are being pursued on a more human scale. In the quiet of the desert, a team of researchers ascends the Sphinx's back, their destination a small, unassuming hatch atop its head. Opening it, they descend into the darkness, their torch beams cutting through air that has been still for centuries. They are not seeking treasure, but something far more valuable: insight. Inside, a narrow shaft drops down into the creature's neck. The walls are not rough-hewn, but carefully carved, suggesting that this was no accident of geology, but an intentional addition by its ancient builders, or perhaps by later restorers. What they found was not a chamber of gold, but a profound clue. The deliberate nature of the shaft raises immediate questions. Was it merely a structural feature, an anchor point for a part of the royal headdress long since lost to time? Or was it something more, the beginning of a deeper passage, an entryway to chambers and corridors rumored to lie hidden within the Sphinx's body and beneath its paws? Having documented the chamber, the researchers ascend back into the blinding Egyptian sun, exhilarated. They have solved a small puzzle, confirming human artifice, yet in doing so, they have unlocked a door to even deeper enigmas. The hatch is secured once more. The Sphinx, with its impassive gaze and battered face, resumes its silent watch, its greatest secrets still locked away in stone and time. This single discovery underscores a greater truth. The Giza Plateau, dominated by the colossal pyramids of the Fourth Dynasty, may only be the most visible layer of a far deeper history. Beneath the shadow of Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, a hidden past could lie dormant, a past that predates the pharaohs by centuries, if not millennia. The sands of Egypt are not merely a blanket of forgetting, but a veil. Each new excavation, each re-examined artifact, peels back another corner, revealing glimpses of a world more complex and ancient than we have ever dared to imagine. The quest for knowledge here is not a linear march toward a final answer, but a descent into ever-expanding mystery, where every truth uncovered only serves to illuminate the vastness of all that we still do not know. Beneath the shadow of the Great Pyramids, etched into the desert floor, lies a story the stones themselves do not tell. It is a narrative buried not in tombs of gold, but in layers of time, revealing a far more complex and ancient history for Giza, one that suggests not a creation, but a conquest, a rewriting of its very origins. At the heart of this historical reassessment is a feature that seems, at first, entirely insignificant. It is known as the Chroma Dump, a crescent-shaped scar upon the landscape south of the main pyramid complex. To the casual eye, it is merely an ancient disposal site, a repository of forgotten histories. But within this seemingly mundane collection of discarded materials, a profound debate rages, one that could unlock Giza's pre-dynastic secrets. First disturbed in the 1970s by the meticulous work of Austrian archaeologist Karl Kromer, the site was re-examined in 2018 by the Ancient Egypt Research Associates, or AERA, under the direction of Dr. Mark Lehner. The orthodox narrative, reinforced by AERA's recent findings, views the dump through the lens of the Fourth Dynasty, the age of the Great Pyramid builders. Their analysis characterized it as a demolition and trash heap from that era, its contents consistent with a raised royal rest house or a small palace, perhaps dating to the reign of Khafra, the pharaoh who commanded the construction of the Second Pyramid. This interpretation fits neatly, almost too neatly, into our prevailing understanding of Giza as a sacred necropolis, a landscape largely untouched until the pharaohs of the Fourth Dynasty chose it for their monumental ascent to the heavens. But Karl Kromer's original findings, painstakingly detailed in his extensive 1978 publication Settlement Finds from the Early Old Kingdom in Giza, paint a far more nuanced and intriguing picture. While he certainly acknowledged the undeniable presence of Fourth Dynasty materials, Kromer's careful excavation unearthed something else, something older. He identified a significant number of artifacts, pottery shards, tools, the humble debris of daily life, that he confidently dated to the First, Second, and Third Dynasties. This was evidence of a Giza that existed for centuries before the pyramids. Even more provocatively, he believed some artifacts whispered of an even deeper past, hinting at pre-dynastic activity on the plateau, a time before the unification of Egypt under the legendary King Nama. This raises a fundamental question, one that strikes at the very foundation of the conventional narrative. Was the Kromer dump merely a convenient place for the Fourth Dynasty builders to discard the rubble of a temporary royal lodge? Or was it something more? Was it the final resting place for the remnants of a much older settlement, the ghost of a vibrant community that thrived on this sacred plateau long before the first Great Pyramid was ever conceived? In his preliminary report from 1972, Kromer put forward a bold and, at the time, radical hypothesis. He proposed that an extensive settlement had existed right here, flourishing from the dawn of the First Dynasty through the Third. He then postulated a dramatic event. At the beginning of the Fourth Dynasty, this entire settlement was deliberately and systematically demolished. It was wiped from the landscape to make way for the grand project that would forever define Giza, the royal necropolis. This interpretation directly challenges the long-held vision of Giza as a relatively vacant, pristine desert plateau, chosen by Khufu for its sacred emptiness. Kromer's work suggests it was not empty at all, it was inhabited. The implications are staggering. It suggests that before Giza was a city of the dead, it was a city of the living, and that to build an eternal home for their gods on earth, the pharaohs may have first had to obliterate the homes of their own people. The Kromer dump ceases to be a simple trash heap and becomes a crime scene, the only remaining evidence of a lost Giza. History, we are reminded, is often written by those who hold the tools of erasure. And here, buried in the sand, lies the faint, ghostly echo of a history that was ordered to be forgotten. The Giza Plateau. For millennia, its name has been synonymous with the monumental ambition of the Fourth Dynasty pharaohs, a barren stage chosen by Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure to host their ascent into eternity. The standard history is one of creation from nothing, a sacred necropolis carved from a virgin landscape. But buried within the plateau's own refuse, a discovery was made that threatens to unravel this foundational story. An ancient dump, a repository of forgotten things, held evidence of a far deeper history, suggesting Giza was not a blank canvas, but a place of significant human activity for centuries, even millennia, before the first Great Pyramid ever pierced the sky. The hypothesis, put forward by archaeologist Carl Kromer, was revolutionary. If correct, it would demand a fundamental reassessment of Giza's origins, forcing us to question the very motivations for choosing this specific stretch of desert as the ultimate royal cemetery. Kromer's claims were not born from speculation. They were built, piece by painstaking piece, from the discarded fragments he unearthed from this ancient landfill, a stratified archive of a lost Giza. Among the most common, yet most revealing artifacts are the shards of pottery. In the hands of an archaeologist, these humble fragments become storytellers. Kromer identified countless pieces bearing distinctive decorative scratch marks. These were not random scuffs, but a dialect written in clay, a style reminiscent of the pre-dynastic Nakada II culture, a society that flourished between 3,500 and 3,200 BCE. Other fragments spoke of the early dynastic cultures of Lower Egypt. The presence of these separate ancient styles, buried together, suggests a settlement with deep roots, a place that may have had connections to, or was even inhabited by, the very peoples who forged the first Egyptian kingdoms. Yet perhaps the most compelling evidence, the most chronologically precise, comes not from what held the goods, but from what sealed them. Kromer discovered numerous clay ceilings within the dump. In ancient Egypt, these small lumps of clay were the bedrock of administration and security. Pressed over the knots of ropes securing jars, boxes, and even the doors to storerooms, they were then stamped with cylinder seals, creating an impression that identified an owner, an official, or a state institution. They were the ancient world's security tags. The ceilings from Giza depicted a menagerie of animal figures, early hieroglyphic symbols, and intricate geometric patterns. Through careful stylistic comparison with seals from other, well-dated sites, Kromer could confidently place a number of them in the Thinite period. This was the era of the First and Second dynasties, when the nascent Egyptian state was ruled from the distant city of Thinis. The implication is staggering. It means that long before the pyramid builders, goods were being officially sealed, stored, and opened at Giza under the authority of the kingdom's very first kings. Alongside these administrative artifacts lay the tools of daily life. Kromer uncovered a variety of implements fashioned from stone: fine fishing hooks, sharp-edged blades, and triangular scrapers for working hides. While the forms of such utilitarian tools can persist unchanged for long periods, making them difficult to date in isolation, their context here is key. Found buried in the same layers as the early pottery and the Thinite ceilings, their presence strengthens the portrait of a vibrant, working settlement. They are the physical proof of an established community, drawing sustenance from the Nile and thriving on this plateau. A final layer was added to the argument with the discovery of faience tiles. Faience, a brilliant glazed ceramic material, was a substance of immense prestige, its turquoise shimmer often reserved for royal and elite contexts, meant to evoke rebirth and the eternal waters of the Nile. Cromer noted the striking similarity of these tiles to those found lining the subterranean chambers of the southern tomb of Giza, the great 3rd dynasty king and builder of the very first pyramid at Saqqara. This was not the material of a simple village. This was the stuff of palaces and temples. To find it at Giza, in a context predating the 4th dynasty, hints at the existence of structures of true significance, buildings of administrative or even royal stature, standing on the plateau long before the world knew the name Khufu. The contents of a single garbage dump have thus opened a profound new chapter in the story of the world's most famous archaeological site. The evidence suggests the Great Pyramids did not rise from an empty desert. They were built upon a landscape already rich with history, a place already resonant with the footfalls of officials, artisans, and priests from the very dawn of Egyptian civilization. History is not a static monument, but a living landscape whose contours can be reshaped by the smallest of forgotten things, waiting patiently beneath the sand for a new story to be told. From the earth of the Cromer Dump, a place of discarded history at the foot of the Giza Plateau, an object of profound mystery emerges. It is a diminutive talisman, a mere 3.6 centimeters long, fashioned from humble mud. Yet this small Sphinx statuette, unearthed in a trench alongside crucial early dynastic clay ceilings, threatens to rewrite the very origins of Egypt's most iconic symbol. Its discoverer, Carl Cromer, proposed a staggering possibility that this could be the oldest Sphinx ever found. But it is an anomaly, a phantom from a forgotten age. It deviates profoundly from the canon of pharaonic art. The most glaring heresy is the absence of the Nemes headdress, the striped royal headcloth that is the unequivocal signature of the Sphinx for millennia to come. In its place, the artist sculpted a meticulously detailed coiffure, a cascade of individual curls arranged in perfect concentric circles. This singular feature immediately divorces it from its famous descendants, casting it as an iconographic outlier. It is a Sphinx, but not as we know it. Cromer himself was caught in a paradox. A firm believer that the Great Sphinx was a monument of the 4th dynasty king Khafre, he tentatively assigned this small effigy to the same reign. Yet he could not ignore the unsettling inconsistencies. The primitive quality of the carving, which stands in stark contrast to the obsessive detail of the hair. The unusual, almost tense posture of the lion's body. Every element raised more questions than it answered, creating a deep fissure in the accepted timeline. To understand this strange artifact, we must look beyond the age of the pyramids, into the deep time that preceded them. Across the Giza Plateau, fragments of pre-dynastic pottery offer a crucial link to the cultures that thrived here long before the first pharaohs unified the land. Of particular interest is the Mahdi culture, a sophisticated society that flourished in Lower Egypt from around 4000 to 3200 BCE. Archaeological evidence, primarily their distinctive ceramics, confirms that the Mahdi people had a tangible presence at Giza. The extent of their settlement remains shrouded in mystery, but the Cromer Dump, with its cache of potentially pre-dynastic artifacts, offers a tantalizing glimpse into this earlier epoch. It suggests that Giza was never a vacant landscape, a blank canvas awaiting the grand designs of 4th dynasty kings. It was, instead, a place with its own long and complex history, a sacred ground that may have held profound significance for the Mahdi and their ancestors. The small, curly-haired Sphinx may not be a crude precursor to Khafre's monument, but a relic from this entirely different world, a symbol whose meaning is now lost to us. And this is not the only enigma buried beneath the sands. Hiding in plain sight, often overshadowed by the colossal grandeur of the pyramids, lies a feature known as the Osiris Shaft. This extraordinary subterranean complex, a vertical descent into the bedrock of the plateau, harbors its own secrets of ancient Egyptian belief. Though known to explorers since the late 19th century, it was largely ignored, a curious footnote in the race to uncover the treasures of more prominent monuments. For decades, its story remained untold, its depths uncharted. It was not until the 1990s that the Osiris Shaft finally began to yield its secrets, brought into the light by the focused efforts of archaeologist Zahi Hawass. What was revealed was not a simple tomb, but a multi-layered symbolic journey into the underworld, a physical manifestation of the Egyptian myth of death and rebirth. The tiny Sphinx and the deep shaft, one an object you can hold in your hand, the other a void that descends into the earth. Both serve as powerful reminders that the Giza Plateau is not a static museum of a single dynasty. It is a palimpsest, a landscape upon which countless generations have inscribed their beliefs. Each discovery, whether a mud figurine or a hidden chamber, peels back another layer, revealing a history far deeper and more complex than we ever imagined. The past is not a singular, monolithic story, but a chorus of whispers, waiting patiently in the silence for those willing to listen. Beneath the sun-scorched sands of the Giza Plateau, a world of secrets lies silent and waiting. For decades, whispers have circulated of clandestine expeditions, of digging and drilling that defy official records, a shadow world of exploration conducted away from the public eye. Since the 1970s, official accounts have been challenged by evidence of unacknowledged excavations around the Sphinx, a labyrinthine effort to probe the very bedrock of this ancient necropolis. At the center of this controversy is a structure of profound mystery, a vertical shaft plunging more than 100 feet into the earth, known today as the Tomb of Osiris. Under official direction, a methodical exploration finally began, peeling back the layers of sand and time. What it revealed was not a simple tomb, but a complex, multi-tiered architecture, a physical manifestation of ancient Egyptian cosmology. Yet, reaching its heart was a trial worthy of the gods themselves. The lower levels of the shaft were drowned, submerged in the dark, silent waters of the Giza aquifer. This subterranean lake, a formidable guardian of the shaft's deepest secrets, presented an immense challenge. It was as if the builders had contended with this water, or perhaps had even invited it in, a chilling echo of the great flood myths that haunt human memory, tales of a former age of the world brought to a cataclysmic end. The effort to conquer this underground sea was monumental. Modern pumps and heavy equipment were painstakingly lowered into the chasm, their 21st century hum a stark contrast to the sepulchral silence. Gallon by gallon, the water was drawn out, a slow, arduous process essential to unveiling what lay beneath. As the waters receded, the shaft's true nature emerged, a puzzle box of engineering, ritual, and belief. Its three distinct levels descend deep into the earth, each a chapter in a story written in stone. The final, deepest chamber is a breathtaking sight. Here, at the bottom of the world, a massive, unadorned stone sarcophagus rests on a small island, surrounded by the very water that once flooded it completely. It is a potent, deliberate recreation of the Egyptian underworld, the Duat, a primordial island of creation rising from the chaotic waters of Noon. It is a vision of the afterlife, carved into the living rock of the plateau. Ascending to the second level, the mystery only deepens. Here, 6 empty burial shafts are carved into the walls, plundered by ancient hands, their contents lost to time? Or was their emptiness a deliberate statement, a symbolic burial for entities or ideas, rather than for physical bodies? This level offers a tantalizing glimpse into complex burial rites, yet its ultimate meaning remains shrouded. Frustratingly, the walls bear no inscriptions to name its architect or its intended occupant. But the debris of history provides its own testimony. Shards of pottery, fragments of elegant stone vessels, and other small artifacts, when analyzed, point to a period of intense activity during the New Kingdom. These humble objects are the crucial clues, allowing researchers to piece together the timeline of this incredible structure, anchoring its mythic design to a tangible moment in human history. In the smaller chambers surrounding the great sarcophagus, the most poignant discoveries were made: the mummified remains of individuals. These were not kings or pharaohs, but perhaps the priests or guardians of this sacred place. Their bones offer a rare and intimate glimpse into the lives of ordinary ancient Egyptians, revealing their diets, their ailments, and the very moment of their deaths, a human story set against a divine backdrop. To understand this place is to understand Osiris, the god of the afterlife, the lord of death and rebirth. His epic is one of betrayal and devotion. Murdered and dismembered by his jealous brother Set, his body was scattered across Egypt. It was his wife, the powerful Isis, who painstakingly gathered his pieces, reassembled him with her magic, and brought him back to life. Through this resurrection, Osiris became the ultimate symbol of the eternal cycle, the promise that life could triumph over oblivion. The shaft, in its very design, is a three-dimensional tribute to this powerful myth, a descent into death, a passage through the underworld, and the potential for rebirth. He was remembered not just as a god of the dead, but as a primordial king, a bringer of the gifts of civilization, of agriculture, law, and order. In this light, the Osiris shaft transforms. It is more than a tomb. It is a monument to the foundational principles of existence itself, an architectural prayer that the cycle of life, death, and renewal, for humanity, for civilization, for the cosmos, will never be broken. It is an assertion, carved in stone, that even in the deepest darkness, there is the promise of a new dawn. Deep within the limestone bedrock of the Giza plateau, far from the light of the Egyptian sun, lies a structure of profound mystery. It is a descent into the earth, a journey through 3 distinct levels of reality, a labyrinth that masterfully merges the practicalities of engineering with the ethereal touch of the mystical. This is the Osiris shaft. The journey begins not with a grand entrance, but with a stark rectangular aperture in the earth, a gateway to a world below. A sheer drop of 10 meters plunges into the first chamber. This is no simple pit. It is a precisely carved vertical shaft, a testament to the advanced planning of its creators. One can almost hear the echoes of their labor, the percussive strike of diorite pounders against limestone, the strain of ropes and wooden scaffolding, the monumental effort to remove vast quantities of rock, all to create a passage into darkness. The first chamber reached is one of austere simplicity, a space devoid of decoration or treasure. Its bareness a chamber for purification rites, where the world above was ritually shed before proceeding into the deeper sanctums. It was a place of preparation for something far more profound. For this is merely a prelude. The true descent has yet to begin. From the floor of this antechamber, a second shaft plummets another 20 meters into the bedrock. The air grows cooler, the silence more absolute. Here, the architecture becomes more complex, more enigmatic. This second level contains a central chamber from which 6 empty burial shafts are kept. Were they intended for guardians of the tomb? For disciples who failed their trials? Or do they represent something far more esoteric, a symbolic passage through multiple gates of the underworld? At the nadir of this descent, some 30 meters below the surface, the world transforms. Here, the solid rock gives way to a subterranean island, surrounded by a pool of dark, still water. It is a chamber intentionally flooded, a deliberate recreation of the Egyptian underworld, the Duat. This is the primordial ocean from which all life was born, and to which all souls must return. Standing sentinel on this island of stone is a monolithic sarcophagus, vast and empty, a silent testament to the absent god for whom it was built, Osiris, ruler of the afterlife. To stand before this stone vessel is to feel the weight of eternity, to sense a connection to his mythic journey through death, dismemberment, and resurrection. But why was such an elaborate and hidden place ever conceived? The answer may lie not in burial, but in belief. One compelling theory posits that the Osiris shaft was a site for the most sacred of initiation rites. It was a spiritual crucible where chosen participants underwent harrowing trials that mirrored the ordeals of Osiris himself. They would descend into the earth, symbolically dying to their former selves, confronting the darkness and the water of the abyss before being reborn into a higher state of consciousness. These rites were believed to impart secret, ineffable knowledge, forging a spiritual transformation in the initiate. Others gaze upwards to the heavens for an explanation. They speculate that the shaft's very design was a terrestrial map of the cosmos, its passages and chambers aligned with celestial bodies associated with Osiris, such as the constellation of Orion. In this view, the shaft was a bridge between the earth and the stars, a physical representation of the soul's perilous journey through the sky after death. What is truly fascinating is how this entire structure, its architecture, its water, its sarcophagi, serves as a physical echo of Egypt's most sacred writings. The pyramid texts and the Book of the Dead are not merely scrolls. They are the sacred software for the soul's journey. The Osiris shaft may well be the hardware. It is as if the very spells and incantations for navigating the afterlife were not merely written on papyrus, but quarried from the living rock itself, creating a tangible, immutable connection to the beliefs and rituals of a long-lost world. The Osiris shaft remains a silent challenge to our understanding. It is a testament not only to a civilization's mastery over stone, but to its unyielding quest to comprehend the one territory that remains forever uncharted. It is a profound reminder that for millennia, humanity has stared into the abyss, not just with fear, but with a desperate and undying hope of finding a path through it. Beneath the sun-scorched sands of the Giza plateau, in the shadow of monuments that have defined human history, lies a mystery that descends into the very bedrock of Egypt. It is a place known as the Osiris Shaft, a vertical plunge into darkness that challenges our understanding of the ancient world. The questions it poses are as profound as its depths. Were its chambers looted, their treasures stolen by tomb raiders of antiquity? Or were they always meant to be empty, their purpose not material but symbolic? The descent begins with a simple square opening in the stone, a stark invitation into the earth. The first level reveals a hollowed-out chamber, vacant and silent. From here, a second shaft continues the journey downward. This next chamber is more complex, containing recesses that hint at burials, yet none have been found. These shafts could have been final resting places for the elite, or perhaps they were never intended for bodies at all. Perhaps they were metaphysical conduits, carved to represent the soul's perilous journey into the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. But it is the third level that is the most dramatic. After descending yet another shaft, one finds oneself 30 meters below the surface, in a world disconnected from the light above. Here, in a grand chamber, lies a colossal stone sarcophagus, its lid weighing tons, resting at the center of a man-made island. The chamber is partially filled with water, not from a leak, but from the natural aquifer, the lifeblood of the land itself. This is no ordinary burial place. This is a deliberate recreation of a foundational myth. It symbolizes the tomb of Osiris, the great god of the afterlife, whose island resting place was surrounded by the primordial waters of creation. It is a scene of death, but also of purification, a promise of resurrection echoing the cycles of the Nile. Yet for some, the orthodox explanation feels incomplete. It is here that, to his sweeping narratives that challenge mainstream archaeological consensus, Hancock's theories offer a lens through which to view this enigma in a drastically different light. He posits the existence of a lost, advanced civilization, a culture that predates known history, possessing sophisticated knowledge of astronomy, architecture, and mathematics. This remote common ancestor, he argues, passed down a legacy of information, a warning, and a blueprint for survival, inherited. Through this lens, the Osiris shaft transforms. Hancock might suggest that its intricate multi-level design and its possible astronomical alignments are not merely pharaonic ritual, but a time capsule from this far more ancient society. Could this subterranean marvel be vastly older than we believe? Was it constructed not by the dynastic Egyptians, but for them, using knowledge handed down from a forgotten epoch? Hancock is fascinated by the way ancient structures mirror the heavens. While he has not mapped the Osiris shaft specifically, it fits seamlessly into his broader thesis. The sky was a clock, a map, and a sacred text to the ancients. Osiris himself is immortalized in the stars, his celestial image seen as the great constellation of Orion. Could the shaft's precise orientation indicate a connection to cosmic events, a deliberate alignment with Orion during a specific ancient time? His work suggests that many of Egypt's monuments are not isolated structures, but components of a larger cosmic blueprint, a terrestrial map of the sky. The Osiris shaft, in this view, becomes another critical piece of that magnificent, silent puzzle. Perhaps the most dramatic aspect of these theories involves global cataclysm. Hancock proposes that around 12,800 years ago, a comet impact triggered the Younger Dryas period, a time of catastrophic climate change and world-altering floods that wiped the slate of history clean, eradicating the advanced civilization he theorizes. When we look at the water pooling in the lowest level of the Osiris shaft, he might see far more than groundwater seepage. He could interpret it as a deliberate, sacred memorial, a symbol of the world-drowning floods his hypothesized civilization endured. The tomb of a god becomes the monument to a lost world. Ultimately, the shaft holds its secrets close. Whether a masterful expression of Egyptian mythology or a haunting echo from a civilization erased by time, it forces us to confront the fragility of our knowledge. It reminds us that what lies beneath the surface, both in the ground and in our own history, is often far more complex than the stories we choose to tell. The past is not a settled landscape, but a deep well, and we have only just begun to fathom its depths. The story of our world is written not in ink, but in stone and ice. For generations, we read this story as a slow, gradual unfolding. But etched between the lines, there are scars, violent interruptions that shatter the narrative of a peaceful past. Around 12,800 years ago, the great thaw at the end of the Ice Age abruptly reversed. A sudden, brutal winter descended, lasting more than 1,000 years. Across continents, a thin, dark layer of Earth signals a moment of burning, a boundary layer containing the fingerprints of a cosmic impact. The great beasts vanished. Early human cultures were thrown into chaos. This was not a singular event. The geological and archaeological records are haunted by whispers of other, older destructions. We see evidence of colossal floods that carved landscapes, of supervolcanoes that choked the skies with ash, of dramatic shifts in the Earth's axis. From the deepest recesses of human memory, the myths echo these physical traumas. Nearly every culture preserves a story of a world-drowning flood, of fire from the sky, of a golden age swept away by catastrophe. To entertain this possibility is to accept that civilization is not a steady march of progress, but a fragile bloom in a recurring cycle of destruction and renewal. We may be a species with amnesia, living in the calm after a storm, unknowingly building our world upon the ruins of another. The past is not a settled country. It is a wild and tempestuous ocean whose forgotten tempests remind us just how delicate our present moment truly is.